Hey everyone, it's Monique Renewed. Welcome back to another video. So today's video, I'm going to be rating some Christian books that I've read so far, and they are right here on my bookshelf. I rated a few more, but these are the majority of them. We have 7 books. Some I've rated a 5-star, and I'm pretty sure you may recognize some of these, so let's get started. Be sure to subscribe down below. I make faith and lifestyle content. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you like these type of videos and to share with a friend. So the first book is this one, and this is called The Non-Prophet's Guide to Spiritual Warfare by Todd Hampson, and it is actually an illustrated book as well. I purchased this from Amazon. Basically, this is a beginner's guide to spiritual warfare. It is described as everything you need to know about fighting and winning the spiritual battle in the unseen realm. For those of you who don't know, which I'm pretty sure all Christians know, that there is a spiritual realm, an invisible realm where angels and demons and God is located, and we fight on a daily basis against demonic influences, and they do affect our day-to-day lives. I do feel like this is a good book for beginners. If you are beginning your walk with God and you don't know much about angels and demons, it does go into Genesis 6, which goes into the flood and the difference between fallen angels and demons, because there is a difference. Basically, demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim that were flooded in chapter 6 of Genesis, and the fallen angels were those who fell with Satan before the beginning of mankind. And it also goes into chapter by chapter the armor of God and what that pertains to you as a believer in fighting these spiritual battles. What I love about this book is that it has a lot of illustrations, of colored illustrations. I am a very visual person, so I really appreciated that about this book. It helps the words come alive as a reader and to visualize everything that the author is saying. Ultimately, to be successful in spiritual warfare, you need prayer and the word of God. So that is the foundation of this book. I did enjoy this book. I would say I found myself a little bit, dragging a little bit reading this, because I've already known a lot of this stuff for purchasing this book. So I do think it's more so for beginners, which that's no problem at all. I think that would be this would be a great resource. I rated this book a 3 out of 5 stars. So the next book, which I just finished recently, a few days ago actually, is called The 5 Love Languages, and this is by Gary Chapman. I don't know if you all remember, this book was really popular a few years ago. I guess it was published a few times, or more recently in 2015. This is a really short read, and basically Dr. Gary Chapman says that there are 5 basic love languages that every couple needs to try to focus on in their relationship in order to have a successful union. The 5 love languages include words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. So the basic premise is that each individual in the relationship needs to find out what each other's love languages are and to fulfill those love languages in order to have a successful marriage or boyfriend and girlfriend relationship. So Dr. Chapman, I believe, is a counselor or a therapist, and he details a lot of examples from real life couples into this book and how they are basically on the verge of breaking up or divorcing, or they maybe have divorced, and he helps them find their love languages, and they fulfill those love languages for a few months, and voila, the relationship is mended back together and it's everything that they've been missing all these years. So you can basically go online and find out what your love language is. I had me and my husband do this, and my love languages are acts of services, quality time, and physical touch. Those are my top 3. Now, I did find this to be a good read, and there are questions brought about this book onto whether love languages can change over time, or my thoughts. Sometimes when you're missing something, not only in your relationship or basically how you grew up, maybe that's what's leaning towards what you need. So for example, when mine's being acts of service, maybe it's what I grew up lacking, so that's what is being needed. However, it might change over time if that is fulfilled. So then what would be your main love language then? I don't know if you can understand what I'm talking about, but anyways, in my opinion, I do think this book was was a little overhyped and a bit oversimplified. I do think there is more to relationships than love languages. As it comes to restoration, I think it can be a bit more complicated than that, but it is a good, interesting read and a new concept to understanding, but I don't think that's everything in a relationship. If you understand where I'm going, I rated this a 3 stars. The next book is called Discerning the Voice of God by Priscilla Shirer, How to Recognize When God is Speaking. Priscilla Shirer is a Bible speaker, so she is very in-depth in what she is explaining in this book, which I do appreciate. So it just basically goes into how to recognize God's voice, which I do feel like every Christian needs to read this book just to have a basic understanding on how to differentiate between your voice, God's voice, and the enemy's voice, who tries to mimic God a lot. So it can become very confusing and muddled, and often we can make improper decisions based on what we thought was God's voice, but it really wasn't. It might have been just your own, or it might have been the enemy's voice. So it is very important to discern God's voice. She has various chapter challenges, and I wrote lots of notes. I made lots of annotations. I read this years ago, but I think it is a valuable resource, like I said, for all Christians to understand and to know. So for example, he speaks in dreams, he speaks in warnings, he speaks in patterns. There are various ways God can speak to us, and I do believe that he speaks to everyone, but we may not pick it up sometimes, or we may become distracted. So yeah, I think this is a very scholarly take. She uses various examples in the Bible, a lot of verses to explain her point. It's not hard to understand, which I do appreciate about her writing style. It's not so scholarly where you're looking up every other word in a dictionary. So everyone can understand this. I rated this a 4 star. Okay, so the next book, this is The Battlefield of the Mind by Joyce Meyer. I will tell you right now, I love this book. This is one of my favorite Christian books. I do love Joyce Meyer. There's a lot of controversy about her. A lot of people leave comments on my channel every time I mention her or one of her books. Or one of her Bibles. Personally, my take on it is I have heard about some of the things that she said regarding to Word of Faith, and you have to understand some of that stuff was like a very long time ago, and she has since apologized for some of the things that she said and recognized her wrongdoing, that not everything is so, what is it, claim it, believe it, receive it type of ordeal. I think as I was reading this book, there was one thing that she said something about healing and believing that you're healed. That did kind of steer me the wrong way, but nevertheless, nobody is perfect. Okay, you're not perfect either. I'm not perfect. You know, eat the meat, spit out the bones, basically. Like, everybody is gonna have different takes and views on things, and if you're holding something against a woman that said something years ago and has since apologized and does not believe in that anymore, then that more so is a reflection on you. Now, the reason why this was one of my favorite books is because I read it at the time where I was going through the same exact things, and that is what will bring out a 5-star for me. A 5-star rating from me is that I can relate to something on an emotional level. That's what did this for me. It goes through a lot of like mental torment, demonic mental torment, and negative thinking, which is what I was going through years ago in the beginning of my walk with God. So it helped me understand why I was going through these things and why they were happening. So if you are a new Christian and you feel very confused and lost, and you feel like things are getting worse rather than better, I would suggest you read this book, especially if you're going through a lot of mental cloudiness. And it also has a study guide in the back of the book. I've highlighted so much stuff. Like, I'm a highlighter and an annotator when it comes to like books that I really love. Yeah, I rated this book a 5 stars. The next book is called Desired by God. Those books that I've showed so far I bought from Amazon. This one I got from Barnes & Noble. I've also read this in the beginning of my walk, and I'm explaining that because the way a book makes you feel depends on the time period of your life that you're reading it. So that's why I said those books kind of really helped me in my journey. This one details basically God's love for humanity and why he desires to have a relationship with us. And this book, I would say, single-handedly helped me fall in love with God and to see why he loves us and why certain things happen. and what he really desires from us. Yeah, this book is basically about relationship with God. Keep in mind, I've read these books years ago, so I don't remember like every single detail about these books. I did read up the synopsises, and I do remember basically how they made me feel. And I would say this book is very easy to read. It's not too complicated. It's not too scholarly. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Another book that I did read, actually, ironically, is called Desiring God. So it is a very similar title to this, and it's Meditations of a Christian Hedonist. It's by John Piper. I don't know if it's just me, but I rated that book a 2 stars. It was very complicated to read. It was very scholarly. I mean, you basically had the understanding that I guess you're trying to seek happiness in God, but it was kind of a complicated read. It was really hard for me to get through. But this one, I really do appreciate his writing style. Yeah, you get a basic understanding of who God is, his character, and what that means to you, and loving him for who he actually is. So yeah, this was a 5 for me. Next up is Cling, and this is by Kim Tate Cash. Kim actually has a YouTube channel, and that's how I discovered her. This is a short read, and this is also about relationship with God. I believe she had a series on YouTube about Cling. So yeah, it says choosing a lifestyle of intimacy with God, and that's kind of her thing with Kim, is intimacy with God. So she wrote a book about that, and I have several highlights in here. And yeah, so basically she pulls examples from the Bible about people's relationship with God, like such as David, and what we can extract from that, you know, and also hardships about what it means to have a close relationship with God, because it's not always easy and it can become very difficult and you may want to give up, but there's always more benefit in the long run to stay close to God rather than being in the world. So that's this book. I did rate this a 3 stars. My rating for me, I don't easily give out 5 stars. A 5-star for me is like a book that I love, absolutely love, because I could relate to it emotionally. 4 is I really liked it. 3 for me is I liked it. 2 is it was okay. And 1 for me is I did not like it. Okay, last but not least, a book that I was totally in love with. I found this at Goodwill. I rated this a 5 stars, and that is because it was something that I needed in my time of life, and I feel like I was questioning a lot of things about like my identity, and sometimes, I'm gonna be honest, I did not like myself. I hated myself, and I was finding it hard to understand other people and why they did the things that they did, and you know, conflicting personalities and stuff like that. This is one of my favorite books. This is called The Spirit Controlled Woman by Beverly LaHaye, and Beverly LaHaye is the wife of Tim LaHaye, who also wrote the Left Behind series. I read that series as a kid, the children's version, and ironically enough, I went to the Goodwill yesterday and found his Left Behind book. Let me go straight. So like I said, yesterday I actually went to the Goodwill and I found the Left Behind book by Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins. I've always wanted to reread this because I've read some of the series as I was a kid, the children's version, but I wanted to reread it again and I found it yesterday. So I cannot wait to get into this. This book is thick, okay? So like I said, I feel like God answered my prayers in the form of this book, allowed me to find this book and basically gave me the answers that I was looking for as far as, you know, my identity and helping my relationship with other people. The Spirit Controlled Woman, she details basically 4 personality types. As a person who used to be really into horoscopes and knowing now as a believer that that is wrong, I needed some type of understanding like as to behaviors, and I know that we are born with certain traits. She basically goes into the 4 temperaments, which include melancholy, phlegmatic, choleric, and sanguine, and she goes into their strengths, their weaknesses, and just, it was like jaw-dropping for me because I never really understood myself, and this book single-handedly helped me to understand myself and to understand people in my life and their personalities and how to get along with their personality type, and it helped me to better love myself and to love others. So that's why I really like this book. I have a temperament of a melancholy individual, so basically the strengths go into loves music and art, rich sensitive nature, analytical ability, emotionally responsive, deep and reflective thinker. I do agree with a lot of this. Like it does describe me very well, and basically with the help of the Holy Spirit you can enhance your strength and manage your weaknesses. It just helps you not to clash with others so much. It helps you understand other people and their personality and why they do the things they do. So that's why I really like this book. Like when I was reading about my husband's temperament, I was like, oh my gosh. So, you know, it helps you to give grace to other people and realize, you know, they're not necessarily trying to harm or hurt you, but it is their temperament and how to navigate through that temperament. I would actually reread this again, I'm not gonna lie, because I read these books like years ago, but this is something I would reread. I think it actually goes into the pairing of two different temperaments and how they would get along and not get along. Yeah, and their communication style. It's just, this is really good in my opinion. This was written quite a while ago, but that's the thing, like especially with God's word and like wisdom, it will transcend time. It doesn't matter how long ago it was written, it's still applicable to this very day. And I can't say enough good things about this. This was something I needed at that time. So yeah, that is it for today's video. I would say these are my top 3 books, Christian books that I've read thus far that I absolutely love. I would recommend it to you all to take a read if you haven't already. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Comment down below what are your favorite Christian books. I would love to know any recommendations that you have by Christian authors that you love. And yeah, I will catch you guys next time. Bye.